What's up, good Vipo? Welcome to another episode of our Tim Norman, or the USA versus Tim Norman trial reenactments. Tonight, we are continuing on with this trial. We are still on day 2. Thank you to everyone who has hit that like button and on your way in. If you have not hit that like, please do so. It does a great deal to help this channel grow. Also lets us know that you want us to continue with these reenactments. So it'll be greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. Also, in the chat, I have put the link to my link tree, which connects you to all of my other platforms that you can find me on. So definitely check that out as well so that you can stay connected. So last week with the trial, we had witness testimony from the crime scene expert, as well as the owner, or I should say the grandson of the owner of the building on Natural Bridge that Andre's life was taken at. And he gave us his testimony, and we ended our live stream with during one of the sidebars during his testimony. So his name was Gerard. So Gerard, we're going to continue today with Gerard's testimony, and then we're going to lead into, I think it's the ballistics expert. I think it's after him. So we'll see how far we get between Gerard's testimony and the next witness. But to get us started, we have again our special ensemble cast of, I'm going to bring them up one by one and let them say hey, and then we're going to get right into it. So firstly, we're going to bring up Precious G. Hey, Precious.
Hey, shenanigan time, guys. Shenanigans.
And then we have Robert, who is serving as our Judge Ross.
Hello, everybody. Hello, how are you?
And Precious today is playing the role of Miss Angie Danis. Then we have Margin, who today will be playing the roles of Miss Carol and Miss Rodriguez. And last but not least, we have Mocha Barbie, who will be playing the role as Julie Davis, who is the firearms examiner, is the name of that expert witness. So that'll be after Gerard. So let me do our screen share so that we have the document up. Let me enlarge it so that everyone can see mine. Uh-oh, wrong way. And I probably enlarged it too much. I made it disappear. There we go. Okay, that works. Now my doc's so big I can barely see where I'm at. Okay, so we are starting today on line 17. We are, again, there was a sidebar. I can't remember who it was called by, but there was a sidebar the last time we was there, which means the judge and the attorney stepped to the side. Well, the attorney stepped to the side of the judge's bench. They had their dialogue, and the court proceedings resumed when they were done. And we're starting on line 18 with the court.
Counsel, pose another question of the witness, please.
Yes, Judge. Thank you. So out of the people that I have named, the only person that you are very familiar with was your cousin, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Had you ever met Andre Montgomery prior to the incident?
No, ma'am.
Have you ever met him at all?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Have you met my client, Mr. Tim Norman?
No, ma'am.
Have you ever seen the show Welcome to Sweetie Pie?
Objection, Objection, Your Honor.
The objection is sustained.
If you know, how often would Joe have people come over to the basement?
I'd say probably like 3-4 times a week.
Okay. Would he often invite you downstairs to be part of those gatherings?
I wouldn't say necessarily I had to be invited since I own the house. More or less, I would just go down there, say hi, whatnot, basically check in on him and whatnot, and then go back upstairs to my room.
Okay. And on that night, did you remember being anything out of the ordinary from the gatherings that he had in the past?
No.
Okay. Was there anything that would have given you reason to feel that there was anything out of the ordinary?
Objection asked and answered.
Objection is sustained.
Let me ask you a different question. On the day that this occurred, did you know many people were in the house? How many people?
I can't give you a specific number. I can give you a nice estimate.
Sure.
Probably about 5 to 6 people, including Joe. So a total of 7.
Did you see these 5 to 6 people exit the house when after the shooter shots were fired?
After which shots were fired?
Good clarification. After the first shots were fired.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so just to recap, were you when you first heard the first set of gunshots?
In my room across the hallway from my granny.
And how did the gunshots sound? Meaning, like, were they quick or was it slow and slow?
They were pretty relative. It wasn't like pow, 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 nothing like that, but it was more like a little hesitation in between them. But I mostly definitely heard them though.
Do you remember? And if you don't, that's fine. Do you remember how many seconds or time would have passed from the first shot to the second shot?
Objection asked and answered.
You can answer if you know, sir.
Not like I would say, probably like 1.5 seconds in between shots.
Okay. And after you heard, how many did you hear? I'll say like the initial gunshots. How many had you heard?
That I can't recall.
Okay, so was it your testimony? You heard some gunshots, you got up, and then you went to arm yourself to defend yourself, right?
Uh-huh.
How long do you think it took you from getting up to actually having a firearm in your hand?
Oh, a matter of like milliseconds. I literally, once I stand up, the guns are right there. Well, I didn't have a VCR, so they wouldn't have been on the stand where my TV set. It is a nice size stand. It was a little port for the VCR right there. And that's exactly where I put the firearm at. They were showing a picture of his bedroom during that time.
So we kind of established your room was to the right of that doorway, right?
Off the basement. Well, off the basement?
The main entrance.
It is in the back of the house.
So you don't have a window that you can see from this. If I'm looking at the house from this point of view, you don't have a window that faces out.
No, ma'am. My room faces towards the gangway, which is on the right side of the house in the backyard.
Okay, when you heard the shots fired, do you remember trying to take a peek outside the window?
No.
Okay, after the shots were fired, did you look in the window to see if there's somebody running away?
No.
Okay, after the shots were fired, did you look outside to see if there was anything amiss from your room?
No, not at all.
Okay, And so you arm yourself, you hear that shots fired, and what have you heard next?
After hearing the gunshots and arming myself, or right before I armed myself, I also heard like I said, someone tussling or maybe falling in the dining room area. And I also heard the basement door and the dining room door slam against each other.
That's interesting. How quickly did that happen?
It was a matter of seconds. Wasn't no more than about, I'd say, between 5 seconds, somewhere in there.
Okay, and in those 5 seconds, were you where were you standing?
After all the noise and stuff happened, after all the
Yeah.
noise and stuff happened,
Yes.
I was coming out of the back room, opening my door and looking across the hallway towards my granny.
At that time point, in that time, you had tried to look outside the window
No, there was no windows in that hallway.
in the hallway that you see that we see there.
Yeah, I wasn't in the hallway.
Oh, okay. So you were in the hallway on the inside of the house.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you heard the crashing of the doors. You said
Uh-huh.
was the was that very audible to you, or did you kind of hear like an echo of it?
No, I heard it as they hit together. It wasn't an echo.
Okay, how far away from it were you?
From the doors, that's all, well, not in this picture, but in the diagram that's flat, there is basically, I'd say, there's a square that literally connects the kitchen, my room, the bathroom, and my granny's room, and the basement steps. So I was literally right there on the other side of the hallway.
Okay, so you could hear a lot, but were you able to see anything that was going on?
No, not at all.
Okay, so after you heard the crash, you kind of went to the main entrance, you said, right?
Well, I went to my door and then looked across the hallway to my granny. And then I walked over there towards her. And if you look to the right, indicating, that's the basement steps. And that's where I seen the gentleman holding the gun.
Okay, were you able to identify the gentleman right away?
No, ma'am.
Had you ever seen that person before in your hallway?
In your life?
Oh, in your life, sorry.
No, ma'am.
Okay, did you say anything? Did he say anything to you in the moment?
Nope.
So, do you think from your point of view, he would have been able to hear you coming?
Objection. Cause for speculation.
The objection is sustained.
I'll ask you another question. From where you were standing, could you see his face or just the top of his head?
I actually didn't see anything. The basement steps are dark, and as the hallway was dark because there wasn't any lights on right there, I literally just seen the gun. That's why I used the statement, the gun appeared as if it was floating.
I understand. So you weren't able to see if the person who was standing, or I'm sorry, sitting on the stairways, if they were white or black.
No.
Okay, but you were pretty certain it was a male?
I mean, at that point in time, gender wouldn't matter to me. So no, I didn't know if it was male or female.
Okay, just it just didn't register in that moment.
It didn't register to me that the gun was floating. That's what didn't register.
Do you remember what kind of a gun was floating?
No, well, once again, it was dark. So I wasn't able to actually identify, like, yeah, that's a 9mm. No.
Got you. Had you known it was a gun though?
Generally, I mean,
Sorry.
just like anyone else would know a gun when they see one, I seen it, a hand on it. and the top slide or the barrel.
I understand. So after you see
Don't
the
understand
gentleman
nothing.
sitting there, better said, you see the gun floating, what did you do next?
He proceeded to come out of the basement and turn towards me where I was standing in my grandmother's room.
Did you feel like he was trying to defend himself or attack you?
Objection.
The objection is sustained.
Okay, I'll ask him a different way. Did
You
you
need to.
see him trying to approach you or get away from you?
It wasn't necessarily an approach or a retreat thing. He literally came out of the basement, moved to the right in the front of the kitchen with his firearm raised. If I'm not, well, from my understanding, this is a ready don't shoot move stance. So I didn't bother to ask, more or less. I would say I was willing to risk, ask questions later, then oppose asking a question and being shot and potentially the bullet piercing my body, and then hitting my 90-year-old grandmother behind me.
Facts.
I understand. What happened after? So then you shot him first.
Uh-huh.
What happened after that? What did you do after that?
The first initial shot was loud, and anyone who has been to a gun range knows guns are loud. That's why they have you wear hearing protection. Inside of an enclosed house with no hearing protection, my ears started to ring. So I did this, indicating that he proceeded to raise his gun again. And then I immediately went back and shot a second time. And at that point, he had dropped his gun and fell and was crawling across the floor trying to get the gun. And that's when I shot the third time and hit the wall.
So let's break that down for a second. So did you know if you first shot him, that gentleman?
Okay, so I'm gonna give some context. I was trying to figure out where I should give context. I should have gave it before we got too deep in this. So some of y'all know what I did over the weekend. And I got more details on this story than I ever had before. So I now know who the guy who got shot, I know who that is. That happened to be Dre's friend who had come with him to help protect Dre. Because Dre, Dre is in St. Louis hanging out, but he got people in St. Louis. And so this was one of his friends who rolled with him to help protect him. So
oh my God.
The thing I know is this thing got so many layers, and this stuff I still can't tell y'all. But,
of course,
but this thing got so many layers.
Understand.
So this particular friend was in the basement with Dre in the studio when everything went down. Dre gets a call from Terica. All his friends know is that it's a female on the phone, or a lady, woman, whatever y'all, trying to be respectful, but it's with us, female. There's a girl on the phone and they hear her voice. You can hear the other person's voice, even if a person has the phone to their ear. Mm-hmm. And then Dre tells them, I'll be right back. Because they heard that it was a lady on the phone, their guards were let down. Where normally they would not have let him go outside by himself.
They would have been with him.
They would have went with him. But because they heard it was a girl on the phone and Dre said, I'll be right back, they like, he good. He going out there. Going out there to mess with one of his girls. So that was a way for them to let his guard. So when they hear the gunshots, immediately his friend who was supposed to be protecting him in the first place tries to go up the basement stairs to go see what's happening because he know Dre is outside.
Oh man!
And he gets shot by this guy who lives there, who didn't know, and this guy did not know Dre's friend. Come to find out, this studio that they were at, because we always hear, oh, Dre was at the studio, Dre make music, et cetera, et cetera. Dre ain't never been to this studio before. That was his first time.
Oh my goodness.
He didn't go to this side of town. He was only there because Dre is a friendly person And the guy they met, well, I shouldn't say met, but a guy who he was cool with, more of an associate, invited Dre to that studio saying, hey, I got a place we can go, get some studio time, blah, 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 this and that. Dre's friends was saying, yeah, we don't go on that side of town. Dre like, nah, he cool. This is my cousin. So like his mom said, and like Dre's mom said in the video, everybody he's real friendly with, he make him into a relative. That's my cousin. That's my,
Oh man.
So this guy who's an associate of Dre invites him to the Natural Bridge studio earlier that day. Dre tells his boys, let's go on over there because he really is into making music. And he got a space for us. Let's go over there and make some music. First time there.
Not with
and he never goes to that side of town because that's considered different turf. They don't really mess with them people over there. They know it's dangerous over there. But Dre was like, oh, we good. We good because I know this guy who taking us over there.
And this whole living her best life.
Yeah.
So
that part could be a coincidence that this now. So that was some of during the investigation, some of them trying to figure out, was Dre set up by the person who randomly asked him to come to that location that he's never been in. To our knowledge, at least what's come out, there's no proof of that. We do know that Terica just supposedly happens to be a coincidence that Terica, hooked up with him that day. Dre told her where he was. So was Dre lured to that area as well? We don't really know, but that was his first time at that studio. We do know that. That was not his regular hanging spot. Yeah. When I found that, my jaw was, well, it was a couple other things, but that was one of the things. Like, what? I always thought that was one of the spots he went to. No. Okay, so I want to give you context of what this guy who's coming up the basement steps, like, now it gives you a better perspective of like who he is, how he may be feeling like, I'm in this strange house. I'm my boy outside. I'm trying to get to him, but I also got to be careful coming up these stairs because I don't know where these gunshots have come from, all that kind of stuff. Okay.
Camel hips make me sick. He knows Natural Bridge better than anybody else, so I won't be surprised if something come out later on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I do believe that what he's
paragraph 8, line 8.
Wait, what happened?
Should I reread line 8?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. So let's break that down for a second. So do you know if you first shot him, that gentleman?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know if it hit him, if it was still dark out or dark inside? I'm sorry.
Because I seen his shoulder twist like this. So then he indicated how the guy fell against the wall. As if he was hit.
And so his shoulder was hit, but he still raised his arm?
Uh-huh.
Counsel, can I ask you to approach the sidebar for just a moment, please?
The judge is tired of you.
Right.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Sandra Pearl, for the super sticker. I really appreciate you, friend, for your support of us.
I am at a loss to understand how this is all relevant to the case that we're trying. Can you tell me how it is relevant?
Sure. We don't know yet whether the first shot came from the inside the house or the outside the house. And I understand the government believes that their narrative entirely that the shots came from the outside the house, but we don't actually know that.
You don't talk about the government.
We need to test this sufficiency of the narrative. And so he was there and he has a personal knowledge. So I'm just testing the sufficiency of what we are hearing. And I think that's very relevant.
You know nothing about the government.
Sorry, what?
Nothing.
There is no definitive thing that we can point to that says absolutely that first shot that were fired came from the outside. There is no shred of evidence in all of this discovery that says that.
And if I can complete the record on that, Judge, I know you typically don't let the other attorney respond.
Go ahead.
So basically, Mr. Leonard is like, Ms. Rodriguez ain't doing a good job proving her point. So he want to jump in. He want to interject. The reason that this is also relevant, Your Honor, is because that could explain the actions of Mr. Hill. The government's theory is that he was there as a marksman, as an assassin. However, a different set of facts may be that Mr. Hill heard the shots coming from inside that spooked him, that caused him to start firing bullets. And that's keenly relevant to this case because it goes to his motive. The government's theory is that he was a paid assassin. That's their theory. Great. We are allowed to develop facts to show the theory is false. So this is crazy. So now I forgot about this part. I think he alluded to it in another part because, we're not hearing this as the public. But he's now saying that Travell happened to just be at this address, hear shooting inside of that house, and he randomly starts shooting at the building.
The lies.
All right, Miss the court.
You're asking him about where his shots were. And that's because your argument is that Andre Montgomery may have been shot by him.
No, Judge. It is the fact that Mr. Hill, who is the alleged assassin, why he shot Andre Montgomery. The government's theory, which is not a fact, is that Mr. Hill did it because someone told him to do it. A reasonable alternate to that, Judge, is no, he didn't do it because anybody told him to do it, but he heard shots being fired. Also, shots went off that night in that yard. And Mr. Hill responded and assassinated and murdered Andre Montgomery. Not because someone paid him to do it, because he responded to gunfire. Now, never mind that Travell Anthony Hill himself said that they told him to go over there and do it. Let's ignore that part. Okay, court.
It still doesn't make a difference. The questions that you're asking right now, even trying to accept everything that you're saying is true. That Mr. Hill heard shots from the inside and started shooting. It's still you're asking him about what the person's shoulder did after he was being shot. So I'm going to tell you to move on.
Sure.
I understand.
Then the proceedings resume in open court.
Okay. Thank you for waiting on that sidebar.
Oh, no problem.
So, the first shot, just to kind of recap, the first shot that you had heard came outside of your bedroom. You came downstairs to the basement.
Objection.
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry.
It's mischaracterizes his testimony.
The objection is sustained.
Right, because he never once mentioned anything about going into the basement.
Exactly. She making up stuff.
When you heard the first shot, the first gunshot, you had come downstairs?
I was already on the first floor.
On the first floor. I'm sorry. You kind of came to where you heard the doors crashing, correct?
Yes, which is right across the hallway.
Had you heard any other gunshots?
No, but other than the ones I had shot, no.
Yeah, and after you had first fired your weapon, did you hear any other gunshots?
No, ma'am.
So is it fair to say that the gunshots had stopped at this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did the other person ever fire at you?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so let's move this along finally. After you realize that he's not an intruder, what happened next?
He stated that he was on my side and that he was trying to figure out what was going on with his friend. So he's referring to Andre, who had went outside, in which at that point in time, I didn't know anyone had went outside. I proceeded to tell him, since he was injured or whatever and was no longer a threat, I told him I would call 911, clearly to get him some attention. It may seem a little harsh or rude, but at the same time, I did tell him, let's move from the kitchen so you're not bleeding all over me and my grandmother's kitchen, to let's go towards the front of the house, let's go outside. And upon unjamming the basement door and the dining room door, that's when I seen Dre. We both seen him laying on the floor.
When you say unjamming the door, what does that mean, so that the jury understand what that means?
Separating the doors from each other. They were stuck together. So I pulled them apart and pushed the dining room door open.
Were these doors that were kind of off the hinges?
No, one was a swinging door and the other was just wide open. The basement door, it was wide open.
Okay, so when you saw the gentleman there, did you see the other people?
No,
Any
ma'am.
other people? Okay, did you call 911 when at that moment?
Yes, I called 911.
Did you use your cell phone?
Yes.
Okay, did you know if anyone else there called 911?
No, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure someone did, but I'm not sure.
Okay, when you when you made that 911 call?
Objection, relevant, Your Honor.
The objection is overruled. You can answer this, sir.
I was in the hallway and all of the doors, basically the kitchen, my room, bathroom, my granny, and then the basement door.
And when did you remember, how long were you on the phone with the 911 operator?
No, actually, I don't remember exactly how long I was on the phone, but they do it in real life. They do in real life put you on hold.
That was clear as day.
Yeah.
Were you surprised by that?
Yes, I was. I really thought that was only in a movie type thing.
Understood. When you were put on hold, where were you doing at the time?
Basically just making sure, of course, because I'm not a doctor or anything like that. I was just making sure that the guy that was shot, he was okay, because honestly, I didn't want to have to shoot anyone, but I'm going to protect me and my grandmother. I'm going to protect my family. So I was making sure he was all right. I was talking to my granny. She was all shaken up. And then within the midst of all of the commotion, my baby woke up. So I had to basically, I was all over the place.
Do you remember going back inside to grab your daughter?
No, I didn't want to bring her out of the room just yet. I would just step in the room, check on her, and was walking back and forth around.
So, okay, so was there any blood in the distance that you covered, kind of going back and forth?
Yes, the blood that was in the kitchen from the gentleman I had shot, yes.
Okay, so it's fair to say that if there had been, I don't know, something like a bullet casing on the floor, you wouldn't have recognized that. Maybe walking it back and forth would have kicked it over.
Given that in that particular area, even if I didn't see the bullet casing, it most definitely would have been mine on that particular area that I was walking. So
Okay, so is it fair to say, did you say other people traveling the same area?
No.
Okay, when you went, you had testified you went outside at the same point with him, right?
No, I didn't go outside. I put him outside. You go outside. He can going outside. Y'all just I'm struggling trying to read this. I don't remember his speech being this off, but I guess maybe it was. I wasn't going nowhere. I wasn't leaving my granny or my baby. No, I told him he could go outside because he was bleeding. But other than that, no, I didn't.
When you had him go outside, did you know where he was in relation
Relation?
to the front door? Sorry.
No, I know he ended up on the corner of the house, which is not in that picture.
So he wasn't near the concrete steps there.
He could have been, but from what I know of and when I actually did come outside and was forced to come outside by the police, he was over there by the corner of the next house, next door to mine, the house next door to mine.
Okay. Oh, okay. And you had seen at that point any people leaving your house?
No, they all eventually came out of the basement because, I yelled down the stairs, eventually yelling down the stairs, asking, was everybody okay? Anyone down there hurt or whatever? And they all replied no. And then they proceeded to come up the steps and they walked outside. But at that point in time, I wasn't going outside because, once again, like I said, I wasn't leaving my grandmother or my child in that particular time.
He tired of you, girl.
Did you know how many people had said no?
No, I can't specify how many I heard.
When they exited the house, was there police tape already there screening the crime scene?
No, ma'am.
Okay, was there any police there?
The gentleman who went outside, so it happened there, was a police officer. Natural Bridge is a pretty busy street. So the gentleman, as he walked outside, he, I guess, waved down the police officer that was riding up Natural Bridge. And including with me calling the 911, that officer, I don't think he was responding to the call. It was just him, the person who was shot, flagging him down or waving him down.
Okay, so the incident happened on March 14th. Is that correct? 2016?
Uh-huh.
Do you remember, or are you from St. Louis, right?
He nods his head.
Do you know if that day had any special meaning to people from St. Louis?
Now, she was supposed
Objection. Relevance.
to tell him that she needs a yes or no answer. You see how she wasn't really very knowledgeable of the
A special meaning? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Objection, relevance. That makes no sense.
The objection is sustained.
Miss, let me ask you a different way.
Yes,
do you
please.
know if Natural Bridge on that day was a little more busy than normal?
No, it wasn't.
Okay. Do you remember if there was any cars that were parked there that normally wouldn't be parked in front of your house?
The only cars that are being in front of the house were a little Toyota thing that's Thornton's car or was Thornton's car. This is interesting. Okay, continue. This is interesting.
How about that other car? Do you recognize the car that's in that picture? There in the picture?
No, I don't know what car that is.
So, what cars normally are parked in front?
Oh, once again, objection, relevance, Your Honor. Like, do we care about the cars?
The objection is sustained.
It is your house. Where do you park your car?
Objection, relevance.
At that particular...
The objection is sustained.
Mr. Leonard, may I be heard on that, Your Honor?
Pose another question of the witness, please.
So Judge Ross ignoring Mr. Leonard.
Tired of your shenanigans.
Sure, Judge. Did your grandmother own a vehicle?
No, ma'am.
Objection, relevance. Come on now.
The objection is again sustained.
Is there any space to park on that gangway? Like in that gangway, is there any space to come from behind the park on that side?
No.
No, there is an alley on all of the backyards on that. I won't say all of them because some houses may be vacant, but the majority of the houses have fences on the backyards. And if they have a fence and there is somewhere to park on the house, there is a garage for those houses for people to park. What?
Okay. So in your house, is there anything like any cars access on the other side, on the left side of the photograph?
No.
So what is behind there?
Behind the townhouse?
On the you see left side of the house. I'm going to kind of zoom in. There is like a little tree branch there.
Oh, that's the other side of the gangway that leads to my backyard.
Is it paved?
Yes.
So you can have a car on that side?
No, unless cars drive up hills, no.
Okay, I see there is some elevation in the steps. Is it elevated on this on that side as well?
Objection, relevance, Judge. Come on now.
The objection is sustained again.
So let me ask you, if I were to be driven down Natural Bridge, can I turn and somehow access the back of your house by Natural Bridge?
No, not at all.
Okay, so the only access to the back of the house in a car would be in which way?
To drive down the alley.
Okay, did you have any security cameras?
No, ma'am.
Okay, give me just a moment, please.
This is going to be interesting from the perspective of I can't remember the details with this part, but I'm wondering if she's asking about the parking spaces because Terica specifically says that there were a bunch of cars parked outside. And so she had, when she came by to see Dre, she said she had to park down the street because there were cars all up and down the street. He's testifying, the guy who lives there, that there was only one car in front of the house. So that meant that Terica could have parked in front of his house, but instead she parked further down the street, probably make Dre have to walk further. So it gave Travell more time to be shooting at him.
Exactly.
He wouldn't be so close to the house to be able to hurry up and run in. Interesting. So Gerard says,
I really appreciate you answering my questions today. Just one more. The way the layout of the house is at that street. Was there any way from a car to pull into in and just park there the way that Natural set up? Is that the house there?
Objection to the form of the question.
I can rephrase.
You need to.
Rephrase the question.
Is there any way for a car to have come in and swapped in and parked in front of your house?
Yeah, I mean, it is an open street. And if there were parking spaces, then yeah, for sure.
If there were parking spaces?
I mean, because both of the houses at the time on either side of me were both occupied and then both had cars. So like I said, if there were, enough room for someone to just swoop in and park, then yeah, most of the time people parallel park when they get there.
Okay. And was there usually space to park?
Objection, relevance, Judge.
The objection is sustained.
No further questions. Thank you.
Any other question of the witness?
No, Your Honor, that witness is tired.
May this witness be finally excused.
Yes.
You can step down. Thank you.
No problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break and let you stretch your legs and get a drink of water. Again, the court reminds you what I tell you at each recess or adjournment of the court. Keep an open mind about the case until it is finally given to you to decide. Don't talk to anyone about the case until it is finally given to you to decide. Don't do any independent research of any kind into the issues. We will be in temporary recess for 10 minutes. If you will leave your notebooks there on the chairs, before we bring the jury in, again, I understand you have one witness.
I'm sorry, we're doing a break. I muted myself to drink my water and forgot. So we're taking a quick little break, give y'all a rest break. If it's okay, Cass, can we go another hour?
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so we can I'm trying to get out of day 2. So I'll let y'all take give y'all a 5 to 8 minute break. Whenever y'all ready, just let me know. I'm gonna drop all y'all.
Okay, Robert, you need to go to the bathroom.
All right, we are back. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna play a quick commercial, and then I'm gonna come back and read some comments, and then we'll bring the cast back up. So let me play a little commercial for myself as well.
Ray came back the last time from being in St. Louis. He wasn't living with Robbie at the time. He came back and he said, Mom, he said, if anything ever happened to me, just know that Tim did it. What are you talking about? He said, well, just know Tim don't never do his own dirty work. But I got that fatal call from her about Dre. And I didn't want to answer the phone. I just didn't want to answer the phone. And then she hung up and she called right back. And then that's when she was like, well, the detectives was here. And already my heart is already slowing down, and to the point where they want her to go down to the morgue to identify that was him. That was it. It was like, it was so surreal. Everything was just rolling around. I'm just like, not my son. Not my son. Not my son.
All right, I'm back. So I'm gonna read some comments. I only started. Did I start something? Yeah, I started a couple. Trakisha saying Terica should have gotten more time, period. I'll say that every time. Yeah, I mean, we all feel that. Well, the majority of us, I think, except for her and her family, definitely feel that way. It's a lot to this. And now it's kind of interesting reliving this part of it, because during the trial, I'm not sure I made the connection between this testimony and Terica's testimony, where he is saying that there was really his neighbors had cars, but basically there should have still been open parking spots on the block close to his house, because there were also vacant houses on the block. But then Terica said the entire block was full of cars during her testimony. When we get to that, y'all will see that. So she was justifying the reason she parked down the street. But now it seems like she didn't have to park down the street. She may have chosen to park down the street so that Travell had more time to take aim at Dre as he gets out of her car. Very interesting. Says my laptop still has a DVD drive. Interesting. I don't even know when the last time. Wait, no, I think my last work laptop had not the more recent one. What was it? It's been a minute since I had a CD-ROM drive on my laptop. So Trakisha is asking, so this was friendly fire. So yes, I kind of gave details, but yes, that guy coming up out the basement was Dre's friend coming up to see what was going on with Dre to try to protect him. The other piece that I learned, or since the weekend, some of y'all know why, was that I had said that Dre, when he ran in the house, he collapsed and pretty much immediately passed away. Well, that's not 100% true. He actually, and I remember this when I was having this discussion over the weekend, that I recall someone at some point saying that Dre seemed to be praying after he collapsed inside of the dining room. And so what I was told was he had his hands like this and he was just doing this and he was mumbling. But the person who heard him, the friend, said that it sounded like he was praying, just the cadence of how he was speaking, but it was like low mumbling, but that he was that they pretty much said that he was praying and kind of just rocking his head back and forth. Very, very, very sad. And those were his final moments. And then again, pieces coming together for me in hindsight. The fact that when they called 911, he was put on hold. Obviously, no one was tending to Dre. Could he have been saved? Is the question. Had they gotten to him quicker, had he gotten attention quicker, could he have been saved? I think we get into with this next testimony, the next witness. Yeah, I think they get into more of the details of the bullets and where they went and all of those sort of things. Yeah, for the most part, Sandra. Yeah, it makes it worse. Yeah. That's why Nicole is saying this has me in my feeling. I know I told y'all when we were doing the live recaps after trial every evening, I was telling y'all that it, for me, felt like a memorial service, especially during times like this, during the testimony. It was like a memorial service. It just did not feel quite like court. It felt like a memorial service. Like we were talking about his life, and it was very eerie during those moments. Right. No good raggedy heifer. Thank you so much, Shanice. Right. Sandra is saying sick individuals. Yeah. Let me see. Defense attorneys are the worst. Yeah, Aunt May, their goal is they're trying to get their client off. And as you see, they are not holding any punches. They are, throwing everything at the wall. Part of me felt like Gloria Rodriguez was doing some of this on purpose. Like she seems kind of discombobulated, like she just wasn't connected with what was happening. I really thought she was like first year law student, like this was her first trial. And when I later was looking for images of her and stuff, this was back when the trial was happening. I was like, wait a minute, this woman had done news press conferences and everything. She's supposed to be an experience, and she was the primary attorney that Tim hired. So I don't know what was going on there. That was some tricks and stunts. Totally agree. She was truly involved. Let me see. Okay, we're gonna jump into it. Looks like our cast is all ready and back. So I'm fast forward to bringing everybody back up. Hold on, all these different buttons and areas. Okay, I'm gonna bring up Precious and Robert, Margin, and Mocha. And I'm gonna screen share again. Yep, there we go. Worked out. All right. So we are going to resume where the court proceedings resume at they stood a temporary recess at 3:43 p.m. These were the parts of the day because we never knew how long our day was going. And for me, knowing that I would have to talk to y'all at night as well to give the recap and go through all my notes, and I was already tired because my day would start about 7 a.m. When we would take these breaks later in the day, it was like, oh, we're going for a full day. If we coming back after 4, we're going for a full day. So moving into line 19, Robert.
Before we bring the jury in, again, I understand we have one witness. And then you have put on the bench the stipulation related to the medical examiner. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor. Prior to Miss Davis' testimony, we can publish it to the jury.
Okay. When you publish it to the jury, okay, it is going to be an admitted stipulation. Is that correct, Mr. Leonard?
Yes, Judge.
Do you want to read it? Or are you asking the court to read it?
I'm happy to read it, or if you've had a preference.
Okay. There is an instruction with a stipulation that I'll need to read as well.
I think we put that in the final instruction packet, Your Honor.
I have the instruction. Witness, is that correct?
Yes, please, Your Honor.
Any objection to that, counsel?
No, Judge.
Okay.
You said you have the instructions?
I do. If you have it handy there, I'll look at that to see if mine is the same. It will be the court's intent to read that instruction and then to read the stipulation. This is appropriate instruction for closing instructions.
We agree, Judge.
Okay.
Thank you, Judge.
Let's go ahead and get the jury.
And at 4:13 p.m., the proceedings resumed in open court.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a brief instruction to read to you. The government and the defendant have stipulated, that is, they have agreed that certain facts are as I'm about to read to you. You must, therefore, treat those facts as having been proved. And at this time, the court will read the stipulation of the parties. It is identified as Exhibit 61. The parties of the above captioned matter hereby stipulates that Dr. Jane Turner, MD, in her capacity as an assistant medical examiner for the St. Louis City Office of the Medical Examiner, would testify as follows. 1. On March the 15th, 2016, Dr. Jane Turner conducted a postmortem pathologist examination, autopsy on Andre Montgomery. On March the 15th, 2016, Dr. Turner identified I'll take a shot at pronouncing this, thoracic abdominal gunshot wound in Andre Montgomery, and recovered a bullet from that wound, which is placed in evidence. Excuse me. Dr. Turner identified a gunshot wound in Andre Montgomery's abdomen. Dr. Turner identified 2 gunshot wounds in Andre Montgomery's right upper extremity. Dr. Turner recovered a bullet from Andre Montgomery's right upper arm, placed the bullet in evidence. 5. Dr. Turner concluded that the cause of death was a thoracic abdominal gunshot wound. 6. Dr. Turner concluded that the manner of death was homicide. And it is signed by the Assistant United States Attorney, James Timothy Norman, and Defense Counsel, Mr. Leonard. With that, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. United States calls Julie Davis.
If you will step up here, the clerk will administer the oath. If you will speak into the microphone, it will help amplify your voice. Counsel, you may proceed.
Please introduce yourself for the jury.
My name is Julie Davis.
How are you employed?
I'm a firearm examiner with the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department.
How long have you been a firearms examiner with the SLMPD?
7 years.
First of all, were you a commissioned officer prior to becoming a firearms examiner?
Yes.
What kind of training did you receive to become a commissioned officer?
I attended approximately a 6-month-long police academy, and then we were continuing training every year for 20 years. I was a police officer.
Did you ultimately retire from your post as a commissioned police officer and now work strictly as a firearms examiner?
Yes.
Before retiring, did you also spend time in the evidence technician unit or the ETU?
Yes.
And how long did you spend as a commissioned officer before you became a firearm and tool mark examiner?
Approximately 16 years.
Can you explain for us what it means to be a firearm and tool mark examiner?
We examine all different components related to fire ammunition, cartridge cases, bullets, and compare them to each other to determine if they were fired from the same firearm or different firearms. We can also compare ammunition components to a particular firearm to be determined if it was fired from that firearm.
And what kind of training have you received to be a firearm and tool mark examiner?
All firearm examiners had a approximately 2-year-long training program. I was also fortunate enough within my 2-year program that I was able to attend the National Firearms Examiner Academy that puts on thorough it's put on through the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
And what does that training entail?
I lived in Maryland for 17 weeks and was taught classes on all aspects of firearm and tool mark examination by firearms examiners across the country. We also toured almost every firearm manufacturer on the East Coast, as well as other tool manufacturers, so that we could see the tools and the firearm parts are actually made. Because when the firearms are made and all the components are made, that is what leaves the marks on the parts of the firearm that then leaves tool marks on the fired bullet components. Girl, she say firearm one more time.
In the course of your 7 years as a firearm and tool mark examiner, can you estimate how many cases have you conducted examinations on?
Thousands.
Do you then conduct comparisons to determine whether firearms fire specific built components like you mentioned?
Yes.
Do you prepare reports to document your findings?
Yes.
And then do you testify to those findings in court?
Yes.
Can you explain for all of us kind of the basic anatomy of firearms and how it works?
Well, we can, in a semi-automatic firearm, what most people typically see on television programs. There is a magazine that is inserted into the firearm or the cartridges or bullets that's placed in the magazine. The magazine is placed into the firearm, and when you pull the side back on the firearm and release it, it strips around from the magazine and puts it into the chamber of the firearm. When the trigger is pulled, the fire pin of the firearm strikes the primer of the cartridge, which causes an explosion. That's then ignites the gunpowder and inside the cartridge. Um, that burning gunpowder creates gases which force the bullet out of the cartridge, down to the barrel and out of the firearm. That same gas then forensics the slide of the firearm to the rear, which will eject the cartridge case. And then when it goes back forward, it will lower another cartridge into the chamber so that when you pull the trigger again, the firearm will fire again.
And can we pull up what's been previously admitted as Government's Exhibit 55E, please? Miss Davis, I know it is kind of hard to see, given the grass there. What component of the firearm or a projectile are we seeing in that photograph?
That is a cartridge case.
Is that what is left behind and ejected from a semi-automatic firearm?
Yes.
Is the bullet what is expelled from the barrel?
Yes.
When all of that happens, those internal processes within the firearm, do those leave tool marks on these components?
Yes.
Are tool marks different from firearm to firearm?
Yes.
Do they essentially operate like a fingerprint does?
Yes.
Is that how? Is that what, when we talk about firearm components, comparisons, or ballistic comparison, is it the tool marks that you're actually comparing to determine if they are fired from the same gun?
Yes.
Are you able to compare bullets to determine whether they are fired from the same gun?
Yes.
Are you able to compare cartridge casings like we saw in 55E to other cartridge casings to determine if they were fired from the same firearm?
Yes.
Are you able to compare bullets to cartridge casings to determine if they were fired from the same gun?
No.
Why is that?
There are tool marks left when a bullet is seated into a cartridge case. When they go through the manufacturing process, a tool pushes the projectile or the bullet into the cartridge case. And yes, that will leave marks. Yes, there actually have been papers where firearm examiners attempt to say that the cartridge case and this bullet come from the same thing. But once the bullet is fired, the pistol and having rifles, they have grooves cut into the barrel of the firearm so that the projectile will spin and create accuracy. Those grooves, once that bullet is forced out of the cartridge case and starts to go down the barrel of the firearm, it cuts into the grooves. And all of the grooves are then imparted on the bullet then. The exact opposite of the barrel is now on the bullet. And all the metal on the metal that was rotation is overlapping any marks that were made when the bullet was seated into the cartridge case. It it would almost be impossible to say this bullet came out of the this cartridge case.
But again, you can compare apple to apple, cartridge casings to cartridge casings to make comparison. Is that correct?
Yes,
And bullets to bullets.
yes,
Were you asked to conduct analysis on, on ballistics items that were seized from 3964 Natural Bridge on March 14th, 2016?
yes,
I placed in front of you two envelopes, which I have marked as government exhibits 60H and 60G. Do you recognize those items?
yes. These are two bullets that we received from the morgue, and each envelope is marked with my lab number, my item number, and my initials and DSN.
Are those items in the same condition as they were when you received them from the morgue and conducted your analysis?
Yes,
Move for exhibits 60H and 60G into evidence.
Any objection to 60 to exhibit 60G and
No,
H?
no objection.
Exhibit 60G and 60H will be admitted.
I'm also going to hand you what has been previously admitted as government's exhibit 60C. Do you recognize that item?
yes.
Is that a bullet that was recovered from the scene right next to the body of Andre Montgomery?
It was recovered from the scene.
You were not that at the scene.
No,
What play card was recovered next to as indicated on the envelope?
3.
And is that bullet consistent with having traveled through a person?
It has damage, which is typical of what we see from bullets that we have submitted for from the scene and from the morgue. Yes,
Were you able to conduct a comparison of the two bullets seized within and next to Andre Montgomery, 60H, 60G, and 60C, to determine whether they were fired from the same firearm?
yes.
What conclusion did you reach?
That all three bullet projectiles were fired from the same firearm.
Are you able to tell from what caliber firearm those bullets were fired from?
Yes,
What caliber is that?
380 caliber.
I'm going to hand you what has been previously admitted as government exhibit 60A, 60B, and 60F. Can you remind us all what those exhibits are?
These are the three 380 auto caliber cartridge cases.
What's the head stamp on those cartridge casings?
PMC.
And these were seized from outside the residence of 3964 Natural Bridge.
They were seized from the scene.
What play card numbers do you have indicated on those envelopes?
1, 2, and 10.
Can you please pull up 55B? Were you able to conduct comparison on these items to determine whether or not they were fired from the same firearm?
Yes.
What conclusion did you reach?
All three cartridge cases were fired from the same firearm.
What caliber firearm was that?
380 auto caliber firearm.
I'm going to take those items back from you. I'm going to hand you what has been admitted as government's exhibit 67, 60D, and 60E. Let's talk about 60D and 60E first. What are those items?
2 357 SIG caliber cartridge cases.
Did you conduct an analysis on these cartridge casings to determine whether they were fired from the same firearm?
Yes.
What was your conclusion?
Both cartridge cases were fired from the same firearm.
What cal?
Go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay. And what caliber was that firearm?
357 SIG.
I've handed you what has been admitted as government's exhibit 57. Can you remind us all what that item is?
This is a Glock MiG 357 SIG caliber semi-automatic pistol.
Were you able to compare that 357 Glock 22 firearm, so those two cartridge casings 60D and E, to determine whether or not that firearm fired those cartridges casings?
Yes.
What conclusion did you reach?
Both cartridge cases were fired from this firearm.
You were given three firearms to examine in this case. Is that correct?
Yes.
Let me show you Government's Exhibit 56 and 59. Did you also conduct analysis on those firearms?
I completed a firearm examination on all the firearms in the case.
Could either of those two firearms or Government's Exhibits 57, the 357 Glock 22, have fired the bullets that killed Andre Montgomery?
No.
Could any of those firearms fire the three projectiles that were located outside the house, the 38 PMC autos?
No.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Leonard?
A couple, Judge. Let me get started. Ma'am, what is the error rate for the work that you perform?
Depending on which studies that you look at, we do proficiency testing every year through a company called Collaborative Testing Services. Based on their statistics, the error rate for false positives, meaning that we say this cartridge case or bullets are fired from this firearm, that error rate is less than 2%. And the error rate for a false negative, I believe, is even lower.
And you have been wrong before.
Not that I'm aware of.
No one has called it to your attention?
There has been a few cases where outside examiners rework the evidence after a firearm examiner works their own case, but that has yet to happen with any of my cases.
Okay, so no one has ever actually reviewed your work to see how proficient you are, right?
All of our work is reviewed by our supervisor, and every year we take a proficiency test that is sent to us by our outside agencies, where we compare cartridge cases one year, bullets the next year, and we have to determine which matches what. What doesn't match, we send our results back to that company, and then they are the ones that provide our laboratory with whether or not we got it right.
All right. So they are trying to cut through it all. Firearms examiners like yourself are wrong a certain percentage of the time. Is that correct?
They can be wrong, yes.
Including you?
I may have been.
Okay, including in this case?
I don't believe so.
And what outside entity outside of St. Louis came in and reviewed your work to see if you were right or wrong?
In my experience, it has been up to the defense to request a case. In my experience, it has been up to the defense to request to have a case re-examined by an expert of their choice.
So when we were in court, it was the tone where she was like reading him like, that's your job, ninja.
Mm-hmm.
It was some of these people weren't having it because, you know, his tone is always like real like shenanigans and accusatory. Okay. That wasn't my question, ma'am. I asked you if you can see by his response how that went. That wasn't my question, ma'am. I asked you if your work had been examined by anybody. The work you did in this case by an outside party, by any outside parties outside of St. Louis.
No.
And just a quick final question. You gave these opinions about bullets and the associated cartridges that were ejected from them coming from a 38 caliber, right?
Objection. Mischaracterizes the testimony. Oh.
The objection is sustained.
Tell us again what you said about the 38 caliber with regards to the bullets and the cartridge cases.
I said that the bullets are a .380 automatic auto caliber, and the cartridge casings are .380 auto.
And my question is, do you know what gun that came from?
No.
No one ever asked you to look at that? Is that correct?
A caliber gun that we would have fired the .380 auto was not submitted in this case.
My question to you, ma'am, was no one asked you to do that, right?
No.
And just so that we are clear, the only materials, items of evidence you were given, to your knowledge, were the ones that were gathered on March 14th, 2016 from the address on Natural Bridge Road. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You weren't given anything later that was recovered from anywhere else, correct?
I take that back. I was given evidence that was retrieved from the morgue.
And that was from Andre Montgomery's body from the Natural Bridge location, right?
Yes.
What I'm getting at is you weren't subsequently given other materials that were recovered from other places besides the morgue and besides the Natural Bridge location. Is that correct, ma'am?
That's correct.
All right. Nothing further.
Any questions of the witness?
Who's Danis? Don't matter. No,
No, Your Honor.
May this witness be finally excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
You can step down. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the court's understanding that the next witness is going to be a lengthy process. So for that reason, we're going to take a little break early this evening. I want to remind you that what I tell you at each recess or adjournment of the court, although I'm not rereading that lengthy instruction, it is very important that you do not speak to anyone about this case in any manner. Again, you can't communicate on the internet, social media, any app, blog. You just can't do those things. You can't even talk to family members or friends. Don't talk to each other about the case until it is finally given to you to decide. Keep an open mind about the case until it is finally given to you to decide. Don't do any independent research of any kind into any of the issues. Now, we truly appreciate your patience and understanding as we go through the trial. I'm going to ask you that you be back in the jury room tomorrow morning at 8:45. If you will leave your notebooks there on the chair, we will be in temporary recess until 8:45 tomorrow morning. Thank you very much. You want me to continue? The court will be back in session.
I was muted. I was saying no, we'll end there. Yeah, we'll end there and then we'll pick up. Oh no, let's go ahead and finish because it's then saying it's concluded. Let's go ahead and finish this piece.
Court will be back in session. If you will have a seat, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I said this yesterday. At the end of the day, I'm going to ask everybody to just stay in the courtroom for about 10 minutes to allow the jury to clear the floor. That way, you won't have an uncomfortable elevator ride, and they won't either. So if you will bear with me, I'll ask you to stay here for a few minutes. Anything further for the records, Mr. Leonard, Ms. Rodriguez?
No, Your Honor.
Anything further on the behalf of the government?
No, Your Honor.
Motion detected at the front door.
I think you're giving defense counsel. I think you are giving defense counsel a list of witnesses that are going to be called in the morning. Is that correct? And it may be very brief.
It's going to be a brief list tomorrow. I'll give one to the court.
All right. This is the stipulation, and that's their instruction. Again, just so the record is clear, also with regard to the stipulation, it is admitted in evidence. It is identified as Exhibit 61, and that's agreeable. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, we'll be in recess.
And then the proceedings were concluded at 4:37 p.m. We have made it through day 2. Look at God, want to do it. It only took 12 weeks. So we move into day 3 on our next reading. And Terica should be coming up really soon. I'm not sure where I'll have to open up attachments and all that, so I ain't gonna worry about it. But we are getting there. We are getting there to the meat and potatoes of some of the testimony. But I at first I was going to skip these pieces. And then I was like, nah, this kind of gives insight into some of the nuanced stuff that we'll talk about in the future as the other witnesses come. So I'm glad we did that. Thank you to our ensemble cast this evening. Put your clapping hand emojis, heart emojis, all your celebratory emojis in the chat to thank them for dedicating their time to give us this action-packed with and lending us their great acting skills. I'm gonna give everyone the stage one at a time. We'll start with Mocha. Any final words for our audience this evening?
Man, I wasn't a fan of the show. I never saw the show, and I only got invested, when I started coming to your lives and stuff like that. But Tim was a damn jerk. I'm like, oh my God, how he treated that baby. It's like, this is your blood. This is your blood over money. I just can't fathom that. But as usual, I have a good time reading. Oh, and Margin, to answer your question about 911 putting people on hold, yes, they do put people on hold.
Yeah.
Wow, that's bad, horrible.
Yeah, and that question, I don't know the time length between the 911 call and them arriving. And it's been so long, so I can't remember if that was ever stated. I just know the exact time. But there are some more testimonies, so if that is information that's out there, it's going to definitely come up at some point during this testimony, the next witnesses. All right, thank you so much, Mocha, for your
All right,
time.
guys.
We will see you later. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right.
And Robert, any final words for our VPO?
Well, we're in the meat.
Did you get mute?
And the meat and potatoes part of the court proceedings now. And it is certainly a tragedy of the guns and the bullets and Andre's poor body. This is a sad case indeed. There is a lot of emotion and a lot of feeling there that I didn't get at the beginning. But now we're getting into an area where you can tell there's a stipulation of the people and their emotions that are in this case. And it is sad that a young man can be treated so horribly. But this is a part of the justice system of our government, and we have to go through this. So I'm glad to be a part of it and hope to continue.
Thank you so much. We will definitely be continuing and hope to see you next week in your great role as Judge Ross. We really appreciate you.
All right.
All right. Talk to you later. And Margin, any final words for our
I'm
people?
I'm just so upset with Miss Robbie. I think was it last week that you talked about? Was that here that you talked about Miss Robbie for Tim's uh uh her paying for her new attorney, his new attorney? They're
I
trying
have
to
no
go back
idea. It was either here
appeal
or
for the
that video
appeal.
about his appeal.
So I think she's for her paying. I told you I was about to cry last week when they started talking about him, the way the body was, and I don't
Mhm.
understand how a grandmother can see that, and I understand that's her firstborn. I mean, her second-born child, but that's her grandson that got killed and was laying on the floor, waiting on an ambulance. God knows how long the ambulance took to get there. Which he could have been saved. If the ambulance had gotten there earlier, he might have been saved. But Miss Robbie saw those pictures and she's still paying for Tim's attorney's fees. That's horrible of her. So that's all. I think she needs to go to jail too.
Actually, she may have never seen those pictures. Actually, so a lot of these images, the reasons I don't have them is because it's a whole nother story. Trying to get the actual evidence. But they were never showing the evidence to the audience. It was only being shown to the jury. However,
Oh,
the jury and the witness. However, there was a certain position that you could sit in, which I sat in most of the time once I learned this fact, that you could sit in and you could see this evidence because you could see their monitor from the side because they had like maybe a 50-inch monitor or something that they wheeled around for them to be able to see. So Miss Robbie during this testimony was not in the courtroom. Miss Robbie I can't remember which day, but Miss Robbie didn't start coming to court and actually hearing the testimony until the second week. So that at least would be what, day 5 or 6. So she was not in there for this. So
okay.
she never heard this.
Okay.
But she knows other things. I ain't gonna trying to absolve her of everything. I'm just
But
stating the facts that she
she
did
could have
not see his
seen the
picture. She was
pictures.
not there, but she did see him at the morgue because she identified his body.
So either way, she knew how he looked after all those bullets.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So she had seen him. That even so either way, she knew how he looked, all bloody and everything, and she's still paying for Tim's lawyer fees. To me, that makes him as guilty as Tim, because there's no way. After having read all the, I mean, I saw all of your videos. This makes it 100% sure. I'm 100% sure now that he's did it. If I wasn't sure before this, I'm 100% sure he's done it now. There's no way you can read all this and not believe he didn't do it. But sorry, thank you for everything.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for your great work this evening, helping to
Thank
bring
you.
the I loved who was that? Aaron M said, bringing the transcripts to life. I love that. I'm gonna have to keep using that. All right.
Yeah,
Have a good night,
thank you.
Margin.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And Precious.
Oh, I like being Angie Danis because especially hearing the appeal, listening to that. So I feel I had her already before I heard that. So I feel like because I'm spunky already, so I like doing her because
Kindred
I feel,
spirits.
uh,
Kindred spirits.
yeah, I was like, man, I'm doing good doing her. After I heard that appeal, I was like, okay. I'm sorry, my dog's barking in the background, and
I
I'm
bet
just
we
like
barely
do this
hear it.
all that buzzing was like getting to me, whatever. But having a son, my son is 23. It just shut up, Rocky, and just knowing that Drake cannot be the age that my son got to, this like means a lot to me because I have a young black son,
Mm-hmm.
and just imagine if some family members would do it to him, I'd be in jail with camel hips because I would have took him out. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
this means a lot to doing this transfer. I have a child who Dre didn't even get to make it that far. You know what I'm saying? So it really hits home for me, you know? So that's why I don't mind showing up doing this every week that we do it. And
Mm-hmm.
we're about to be to the next transcripts. We're
Yes,
done with this.
we
We're
made it.
done with this part. But thanks for letting me do this. I enjoy it. So see y'all next Wednesday.
Yeah, and Dre would have been like, I think close 29 or
At
30.
29, since I'm saying, so knowing
Yeah.
that my son may have passed the age that Drake can make it to the age that my son's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
24 this year. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
that's crazy that he didn't even get as far as my son is.
Yeah.
But thanks.
All right. Well, thank you. Have a great night, Precious. Appreciate
You
you.
too.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. I'm going to read y'all comments. I only got a couple comments start because I want y'all to, some y'all were making some great points and things I want to clear up too. Deborah was saying court stenographers will type exactly what is said, bad English and all. That is very true that they will. So that was a little bit while I was struggling through that Gerard's testimony. I vaguely remember, I mean, he was definitely St. Louis, street dude kind of, but kind of polite, mannerable. I was gonna say well-spoken. Not he could code switch to some degree. But yes, so I'm sure that she pretty much was typing the way he was speaking. However, Trey Keisha also made a good point. Where is this? That they do have errors as well. She says her friend does it. So yeah, it could have been an error. Now, I do think in that particular case that she was typing exactly how he was speaking. However, there are other pieces in this transcript, some we've already passed, that I ran into and I was like, oh no, this is a typo. So there's a combination of things going on that there have been some typos as well that I've noted. So yes, both points are true and factual. So is this the lawyer that Tim fired because she sounds dumb? So if I'm not mistaken, Gloria Rodriguez is still employed. I'm not sure as of this moment because I know he has this new woman now. But Gloria, Tim, this was not the attorney he tried to fire. He tried to fire Michael Leonard. So I feel like I understood the associate at a point, but Tim hired Gloria Rodriguez. Gloria, in some way, Michael Leonard ended up coming on board. So, but this is his primary attorney is Gloria Rodriguez. But I think that Mr. Leonard is more of a trial lawyer, like he's more experienced with him. So they brought him in for that. But this is who Tim tried to fire. Very crazy. Can't wait till we get to that part. Because I think that stuff was happening on the sidebars. And all we knew was like the whispers in the crowd kind of thing. Because some of the stuff, like they were pulling Miss Robbie in the conference room in the back. And then she'd come out and sit down. And we kind of like, what's happening? Like court was about to resume, but then it didn't. And so all of a sudden, people started whispering. And the gossip made it to us finally because we weren't connected to the family like that. And then we heard Tim trying to fire his attorney. We're like, what? He always trying to pull tricks and stunts. And this was like the last, was it the last day? I think it was the last day of the trial. So now, because I know, I didn't know before, that the transcripts they were still dictating, the stenographer was dictating what was being said on the side. We get to know. Oh, I can't wait for that part. We got a little while, got about a month or two, but I can't wait till we get to that part. Because I don't know what was being said. I just know the results of like, what? Okay, two more and then I'm going to let y'all go. The fact that the families of the victims had to sit through all of this mess is horrible. Yes, Aunt May. I felt the same way sitting there that because it was like the moments when they were trying to turn it like, Dre deserved this in some way, trying to denigrate his life, make it like he was some street thug. The lies they made up about him or just in general, the gaslighting that Tim was doing and his attorney, and watching the Griggs family have to sit there for that. It was my heart was going out to them. That's another reason why I connected with them through this process, because I was just watching them. And then keep in mind, they had to be silent for 7 whole years from the date that Andre passed away until Tim was convicted. They couldn't say a mumbling word because of the fact that they could have in some way affected the outcome of the case. So imagine that. So yeah, shout out to the Griggs family for sure. Martin says, okay, yeah, I answered this. That I do not know I should just say I don't recall if that was ever stated. How long it took for the ambulance to come in. Can't even remember if anyone exactly testified to that, but if they did, we'll run into it since we haven't as of yet. That's the craziest part, 7 years of silence. Yes, and so that's one of the reasons why I'm so much of an advocate about continuing to get this story out, but continuing to get in the main sense of getting Andre's true story out, because for 7 years they had to wait and just have this other narrative go out there that many people still believe. I still see it in the comments sometimes. So with that, I thank all of you for joining this evening. If you're watching on a replay, which most people do, please remember to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. If you haven't as of yet, there's plenty more coming on this channel, I promise, and it's going to be worth it. And it won't just be transcript reading. We got a lot of other stories, true crime stories, things of that nature that will be heading your way. So with that, until next time, until I upload the next video, please make sure to take care and be blessed. Peace.
That's